In today's video, we will take a closer look at the developer of the McAfee antivirus software, John McAfee. John McAfee was an entrepreneur, presidential candidate, farmer, and developer of the first antivirus software program named McAfee Antivirus. He led a controversial life and said things such as, "I've collected files on corruption in governments. For the first time, I'm naming names as specifics. I'll start with a corrupt CIA agent and 2 Bahamian officials. If I'm arrested or disappear, 31 terabytes of incriminating data will be leaked to the press." Despite multiple posts saying he would not commit suicide, he was found hanging in his cell after his arrest. Supposedly it was a suicide, but many claim it was because of the things he was talking about. In today's video, we are going to look at the different things that are said to be responsible for the death of McAfee. If you don't want to miss any more videos, subscribe and activate the bell. Thanks in advance.
You think you're not slaves, but you are. Who control you, provide you with propaganda, lie to you, deceive you. Everyone is looking for this escaped slave.
And so I donated to many secretaries within the government laptop computers, really nice ones that were preloaded with viral spyware.
McAfee says he's now in hiding, fearful of what he calls a corrupt government.
John McAfee found dead today in a prison cell in Spain.
John David McAfee was born in 1945 on a U.S. base in England. His mother was of British origin, while his father was an American soldier who was stationed in the army at the time. He grew up in the USA where he had a difficult childhood. His father was an alcoholic and committed suicide. McAfee was 15 years old at the time. Although he got good grades in school, he wasn't the typical nerd. He never studied but still got good grades. His first taste of the world of entrepreneurship came during his college years when he started selling drugs. He later realized that the risk wasn't worth it. In 1986, he started working as a programmer at the Lockheed Martin company. As computers became more and more popular, McAfee saw an opportunity and took advantage of it. According to a friend, he read a newspaper article about a new type of computer viruses that piqued his interest, and in 1987, he founded McAfee Associates. A year later, he brought the first all-in-one antivirus software called McAfee Antivirus onto the market. This software was the first of its kind and was able to combat dozens of computer viruses that existed at the time, making him a rich man. In his prime, he had more than $100 million. In the 2000s, he sold the shares in his company and flew to Belize where he started making antibiotics from jungle plants. In 2012, the police searched his apartment. According to McAfee, the government in Belize blackmailed him and demanded $3 million so that he could continue to run his laboratory. Because he didn't want to pay, they ultimately searched his house in May 2012. After that search, he did one thing that was seen by many as the reason he was taken out. He gave some government officials computers loaded with spy software to see if the search was justified. He couldn't find out, but he was able to find out some other very shocking things. We will take a closer look at this topic shortly. About 5 months after he gave away those computers to the authorities, and after all the government computers were under his control, his neighbor happened to be killed, and he was charged with murder. Rumor arose that his neighbor was annoyed by his 9 dogs, so he poisoned them with rat poison. Then McAfee is said to have hired a person to eliminate him. The American press flew to Belize and organized an interview with a former security guard from McAfee who claimed that he once had to transfer $5,000, and he believes that this was for the job of eliminating the neighbor. Later, the same man claims that the camera team gave him $5,000 for an interview, and that's why he made this story up. He lied.
$5,000 and go put it in this guy's account. Then I realized that this $5,000 was for him to do that.
To do what?
To kill the guy. He said, "I'm willing to pay you $10,000 for 30 minutes. I said, okay, I mean, $10,000. The average Belizean worker only makes $150 a week. I believe in my heart that John had nothing to do with that murder.
They wanted to blame him for something. They didn't even find any evidence to support the claim that he was responsible for this act. After this incident, he started to get paranoid about the government because he knew that the government was trying to set him up. In a news report in 2013, He claims that the government is hunting him.
McAfee says he's now in hiding, fearful of what he calls a corrupt government.
What you're saying, and what I think you've been saying for a couple of days now, is that you're sincerely concerned that if you somehow wind up in their custody, they're going to assassinate you.
Absolutely.
But the question is, why they wanted to get rid of McAfee? This is said to have several reasons. John McAfee was known for his controversial statements, and some would say conspiracy theories. He criticized the current social system and compared it to modern slavery. We are born, and a short time later, we spend 2 to 3 years in kindergarten, where we are programmed. Then we spend 10 years in school, where we are also conditioned to be obedient system slaves, so that we end up doing a job for the next 50 years, from which we can barely survive. For him, this wasn't life, it was slavery. Most people don't even notice the exploitation of this system because we are born in it. We don't know it any other way. His philosophy was that if you don't enjoy work, you should look for something you love, and with clever approaches, this can become a source of income from which you can live.
You think you're not slaves, but you are. You need to free yourselves from this. Not as me, you don't have to go out and risk yourself by speaking out loudly, but free yourselves. This is not what life is. Life is a great mystery, beautiful existence if you are free from those who control you, provide you with propaganda, lie to you, deceive you. Everyone is looking for this escaped slave. I will not be found, and I will continue to speak.
But criticizing the current system was not the only thing that happened. He also talked about the constant surveillance that we are exposed to these days. He said smartphones are a product of the government to spy on their population, just like the entire social media platforms. Every interaction is recorded so that it can be used against the person if necessary, for example, as a means of pressure. And he also told how various investigative authorities get hold of the suspect's data. This used to be done by XXX sites. As soon as someone enters a porn site, they are immediately infected with the virus. From this moment on, a person monitors every letter typed. Of course, the hackers are smart and don't let it be noticed right away, which means they don't directly hack your online banking and everything else. Otherwise, the vulnerability will be found and the error will be improved. They collect data and sell it. The claim from McAfee that the government spy on us is not so far-fetched, because in 2013 Edward Snowden revealed that this is exactly what was being done. In his disclosure files he leaked that the NSA and other secret services were massively monitoring the communications of citizens, not only in the USA, but around the world. These programs collected extensive amounts of data, including phone calls, emails, and internet activity, without clear legal basis or adequate transparency. The revelation of Edward Snowden led to an international scandal and brought him into the public eye himself. He fled the USA and sought asylum in various countries. He finally ended up in Russia, where he lives to this day. The US government brought charges against him, accused him of espionage, and demanded his extradition. The interesting thing is that McAfee claimed that Edward Snowden is an agent. He said, "The government create people like him to show to the public what happens if you try to leak information about the government." Edward Snowden can supposedly for the rest of his life only be safe in Russia, and that's exactly what they wanted to convey to the population, so that if someone really gets the idea to reveal state secrets, they know straight away what the consequences of it are. But the most shocking claim that was made, and that is said to be responsible for his death, was in the interview that we touched on earlier. He claimed that after this illegal house search that was carried out on his home, he gave various Belizean government officials computers with pre-installed virus software. A week later, he had all the Belizean government's computers under control, and he could see everything they did. He actually just wanted to see if this house search was justified. But what he found out was that 2 government officials were criminals. One was the biggest drug trafficker in Central America, and the other was the biggest human trafficker in Central America.
Preloaded with viral spyware. Within a week, the entire government computer system was under my control. I was watching, monitoring, listening. I was looking for information that they had set me up for that raid. I didn't find that. I did find out that the Minister of National Defense was the largest drug trafficker in all of Central America. and the Minister of Immigration, the largest human trafficker.
We don't want to get killed by them either, so we're probably not going to
That's
share
fine,
that.
that's fine.
It was getting a little hot.
He wrote the following on Twitter: "I've collected files on corruption in governments. For the first time, I am naming names as specifics. I'll start with a corrupt CIA agent and 2 Bahamian officials. If I'm arrested or disappear, 31 terabytes of incriminating data will be leaked to the press." When he was arrested in 2020, he said in a video from prison that the American authorities want to make an example of him and he will probably spend the rest of his life behind bars.
It is certain that I will spend the rest of my life in prison because the United States wants to use me as an example.
Despite several posts in which he said that he would never commit suicide, he was found hanged in his cell. His wife said he talked with her a few hours before he died, and he didn't sound like someone who was going to take his life.
His last words to me were, "I love you, and I will call you in the evening." Those words are not words of someone who is suicidal.
What do you think about this topic? Do you think it is possible that he was taken out, or was it himself because he realized that he would spend the rest of his life in prison?
John McAfee found dead today in a prison cell in Spain. The founder of the antivirus software that bears his name had just been ordered extradited to the United States on tax evasion charges. He faced up to 30 years in prison if convicted. He was 75, and a wild ride of a life it was.
If you don't want to miss any more videos, subscribe and activate the bell.